Here's what I look at in terms of open houses. Open houses are an opportunity for right now business. So what I preach and teach and go through all the time is the sphere of influence, your database, sphere of influence, your database, sphere of influence, your database. But those things take time to get traction. It takes time for you not to be a secret agent. In other words, for you to let everybody know that you're actually a real estate agent. And then it takes time for them to think of you first when it comes to, doing a real estate transaction. So my concern always for new agents is, how do we try to get them right now business and for an eternity? And it feels like an eternity. I've been doing this 17 years. I started out my first year, just to give you some background, was 17 years ago. So I had lived here already for 14 years. So I'll be 31 years here next month. So I had a database, but I also chose to do open houses. So my first year, I sold a total of 19 properties for 4.6 million. Of those 19 properties, 13 of them were Sphere, and 6 of them were from doing open houses. So, and I'm trying to think. I think my third and fourth transaction ever, maybe third, fourth, and fifth transactions ever were open house transactions. So even though the majority of my transactions that first year were Sphere of Influence, most of the transactions I did right out of the gate were based on open houses. So that's why I push this as something that I would highly recommend you do. So before I go too much further on the open house thing, we need to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the COVID-19 pandemic situation. They just reinstated the open house feature in our MLS. So they're allowing open houses in our MLS at this point. At the sales meeting on Tuesday morning, they announced that, yeah, you can do open houses, but they highly recommend, if humanly possible, to do the open houses at vacant houses. And they highly recommend that you follow all the rules. So this screenshot, if you look, wherever the message board, when you log into MLS, wherever that message board is, there's 3 things there. One is a message from our CEO, which is the chief executive for NEFAR. So he has a statement in there. Then they have guidelines from the Florida Association of Realtors, and they have some NAR guidelines. And then we have NEFAR guidelines. There's a whole bunch of guidelines here. So at this point, for somebody like me that doesn't have to do open houses, I would look at these and look and go, hey, these are sort of oppressive. But if I was trying to do right now business, if I was new, I would read all those things, follow the rules, and consider doing an open house. It is totally, you're an independent contractor. We give you some guidelines, but we give you a lot of leeway to make your own decision. All I can impress upon you is to make sure you read through all that stuff and follow all of it. Okay? So I'm hoping that some of these will relax some and that things go the right direction for the next month or two, because it's painful for me not to be able to talk to you about aggressively attacking right now business with open houses. Okay. And some of the stuff we talk about today may or may not be okay in the current environment, but are highly recommended when you're not in a pandemic. For example, door knocking for your open house. I don't know if I want anybody knocking on my door that I don't know right at the moment handing me a flyer. That's probably not something that you're going to do right now, but it'll be something you'll want to incorporate later. So we'll get to that as we go through this, okay? So the first thing I want to do with you is define what a successful open house is. So one thing you'll find from me is I'm 100% results oriented. It's a personality thing. I'm looking for results. I'm always looking for, what is the actual result? So throw a couple of examples out there. If you have 10, and feel free to unmute yourself actually to be helpful to answer if you want to. If you have 10 people attend your open house, is it successful? Somebody give me their opinion, yes or no.
I would say if you get a lead out of it, that's successful.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm looking for. If you don't get a lead and you have 30 people go through your open house, it's unsuccessful. If you do an open house and only one person shows up, but you're able to put yourself in a position that you're working with them and converting them to a ready, willing, and able buyer for you, then it's successful. So we're looking at it, and when I go through this, you'll hear me kick it off. I will be mostly concerned about you. I'm not as concerned about, I don't want it to sound the wrong way, like the listing agent's wants and needs. I'm mostly concerned about what we need. Now, most of the time, those things tie together, and I'll explain that further. So here's the way that I look at it. So I told you I had 6 closings my first year. I probably did around 20 open houses that year. So almost, I was doing 2 or 3 a month pretty much all year that year. And I got 6 closings out of the 20. I say that because here's sort of a loose average that we can work from. For every 3 open houses that you do, we're shooting for 1 closing. Not 1 person to work with, but 1 closing. Now, I'll give you an example of that. Kayla, who is on our team, when she first started in real estate, first of all, she didn't have a sphere of influence. She had moved here from Daytona. This is back in 2015. She moved from Daytona Beach up to here, but she didn't have a local sphere of influence. She worked at a broker, a small-time broker here in town, a small mom and pop type broker here in town. It didn't really educate her. She didn't really get what she needed. She switched from them after about 3 or 4 months, and no transactions over to us at Keller Williams. So then I had a discussion with her about open houses and said, here's what we need you to do. We need you to do open houses on a very consistent basis. We want you to do 3 open houses a month at a minimum. If you can do more, I would highly recommend it, because that's how we're going to build our database of past customers who can give us referrals in the future. So she did about 5 open houses with no ready, willing, and able buyers, no listing prospects, nothing. And I can tell you she's very engaging. So I know that it's not an issue with personality or anything else. I just know that it's the luck of the draw. The funny thing is, when she does her next open house, the open house she's sitting, she sold. So I've never done that. I've done probably 200 open houses. I wrote an offer on one that I was sitting, but it didn't get accepted. She sold the house she was sitting in. I can tell you that very, very, very rarely happens, but it does happen. Not only that, the people who bought the house, she listed their house. So she got a buyer and the seller out of that. And then she got another listing out of that in the neighborhood when she walked her flyers. So she ended up with 3 transactions, or it ended up in 3 transactions out of 6 open houses. So she actually beat this average. But if she would have quit after 4 or 5, that average won't work. So if you do open houses, my recommendation, if it's going to be part of your business plan, and I've spoken to some of you about this, 24 open houses is what you want to do. And you want to put that on your marketing calendar, and you want to put those dates in now. And the reason that I say that is here's what generally happens in like October, November, and December. Somebody says, well, I'm going to do, 3 open houses in November. If you do 3 open houses in November, you better do one the first weekend. You better do one the second weekend. Because right around the third weekend is going to be the weekend that's tied to Thanksgiving. It's a great time to do open houses in Florida at Thanksgiving, on Thanksgiving weekend. That's an awesome thing because generally speaking, people are fleeing north down to here for some nice weather for Thanksgiving. We get a lot of that. So somebody might have somebody come into town, had a lot of success, but if you blow that weekend off, then you only have the last weekend. So if you're the person that goes out of town for Thanksgiving, you need to schedule your open houses in advance. And I do it for the next 6 months. That way I don't accidentally not do it the first and second weekend and have no choice but to do them the third and fourth when something may come up that I actually wanted to participate in. I don't want that to happen. So if we do 24 open houses, that should equate to 8 closings. So that's the number we're working with, okay? So something that a lot of people miss with open houses, it's insanely important to pick the right property for you and your business plan. And there are a million things that go into that. I'm going to share my MLS screen and go as slow as I possibly can to sort of show you the pathway or what it is that I use when I'm thinking about it. So for open houses, I usually set up a search or multiple searches. When I set up multiple searches, I might set those up by Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Partners offices, or I might set it up by the locations where I want to do open houses. Generally speaking, the location where you want to do an open house is a very important thing. So for me, I live in Neptune Beach. I prefer to do open houses in Jacksonville Beach, Neptune Beach, Atlantic Beach. In addition to that, I prefer to do open houses right over the ditch in the Intercoastal West area. That's my game plan, okay? And I'll show you a couple of examples. What I would do is set up 2 different searches. So I'd set up a search for my ideal, which is somewhere at the beach, at or below the average list price of houses that sell at the beach. And then I would set up another search for over in the Intercoastal West and the price point that I'm looking at for over there. So I'll show you in just a minute how I'm going to make that happen. So there's a million considerations that we're going to go into. First of all, condos. They can be lucrative. They can work. It's very dependent on the condo complex, how hard or easy it is. Is it gated? Is it not gated? Is there a situation where you have to ring people to get them to be able to come up to your open house? I want to pull something here, ask a question if I got him on here. Sean Nowak, can you unmute for a second if you're there?
Yeah.
Hey, so let me ask you a question. Did you do that open house on Saturday?
We're doing it this weekend.
Oh, good. So
Yeah, go ahead.
When you started asking all those questions, there were probably light bulbs going off saying we probably need to do this, prep a little bit more.
We're gonna get more organized with flyers and making a sign and stuff like that by Saturday this weekend. So
yeah, if you couldn't tell, when we had our one-on-one and you said you were doing a condo the next day,
right,
you could probably tell right away that I was concerned. I
Yep.
was like, oh, this is going to be a great experience for Sean.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, I knew it wouldn't be an easy thing. So,
Right.
okay. All right. So I'll just continue on. So when you do, so what happened is Sean and I were talking on Friday about his business plan, his path for success. Is going to be open houses because he just moved here from out of state. Doesn't have a big group of people in his database or sphere of influence. So we talked about how we're going to create that, but also about how to do right now business, which will be a heck of a lot of open houses for Sean. So when we were talking about it, he's like, oh, I'm doing an open house tomorrow. And he gave me the list, that the address, and told me where it was. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is going to be really hard because, you know, I knew from the address and the property that there were limitations on how to get people into the building, how to get people to the right floor, how to get people buzzed in, how to do signage. All those different things popped up in my mind immediately. So I'm not saying that condos can't be done, but they're going to take more preparation, and you're going to need some assistance from the listing agent that you'll have to ask a bunch of questions about. We'll get to that. So gated communities can be a good thing or a bad thing. For example, Queens Harbor has a fairly specific way that they like open houses to be done. You can do some stuff with them with flyers and signage, but they have a certain set of rules. For me, the most important thing is price point, and I'm going to show you some evidence of why I feel that way. Whether you want to do a vacant or occupied property can weigh in as well. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. A vacant property is nice because you have control. You don't have a seller sitting over your shoulder. Obviously, in the COVID-19 situation, that is very helpful to have a vacant property because you don't have to worry about the seller catching any cooties, simply put. So it might be beneficial to do vacant. But one of the benefits of occupied is, you know, you're probably going to have some accoutrements around. You'll probably have internet access, for example. Having internet access at your open house can be a fantastic thing. Highly recommend either you tether your computer to your smartphone, or you communicate with the listing agent and get the Wi-Fi access password so that you can hook your computer up. Highly recommend, if humanly possible, having internet access. I also think about signage. Depending on the community, the area, and those things, having open house signs can be very valuable. So up here, where I do my stuff in Jax Beach, Neptune Beach, and Atlantic Beach, there's sort of some different sets of rules that I have to think about. Most of the time, Jacksonville Beach and Neptune Beach don't light you up for having signs with balloons, directional signs with balloons, and so forth. Atlantic Beach, it's off and on. Usually a couple times a year, somebody will get upset in Atlantic Beach and say, hey, these people are putting signs all over our neighborhood, and somebody stuck one in my yard, and there's one over here. And then after their open house, they left the sign, and the sign's been sitting out there. And about 2 or 3 times a year, the police will follow your signs, picking them up one by one, to your open house like breadcrumbs. They'll follow those signs while picking them up, and they'll hand you the signs and say, you can't really do signs like this here. So some of this, just so you know, you're only going to learn by having that experience, because it changes. I hate to say it. I wish I could say definitively, you can always use a sign here, you can't use a sign there. That has a tendency to ebb and flow over time. If I can possibly put signs out, I'm going to do it. Door knocking, again, during COVID-19, probably not going to do that. Actually, I would highly recommend that you don't. But when that comes back around, that's one of the best ways to obtain a seller, a right now seller. So if you're sitting an open house and you go with your flyer and the MLS sheet, info sheet for that listing, and you go around and knock on the doors of the neighbors and say, hey, just wanted to let you know, you might see some traffic coming through the neighborhood a little bit more than normal because I'm going to hold a big open house for your neighbor up the street here. Additionally, if you want to come by and visit the open house, we'll have some refreshments there. And you can, take a look at the house and compare it to yours. You'd be surprised if you hand out 50 flyers that way, there's a decent chance that somebody out of those 50 houses is going to be interested in selling their house within the next year. And you may get to talk to them. So moving on with the picking the right property, I want to show you a couple of statistics on why I choose what I choose as a property goes. So what I did was a search. We talked a little bit about this My Market thing the other day. I don't want to get into the details of using it. My recommendation is for you to go to, and I'll point it out to you again, like I have a bunch of times driving you crazy. Go and watch the videos in the MLS site to learn how to use the My Market tool. Right now, I just want to go over the information. So here's the information. In April of 2020, in our entire MLS, we had 8,853 listings. We had 3,128 new listings come on the market in the month of April. And we had 2,414 closings. So if you remember, we're looking at this months of inventory. All it is the active listings divided by the sold listings gives you this number. So overall in MLS, even during COVID-19, we are still in a seller's market. We have a low inventory. If you look at this time last year, so April of last year, we had 9,600 listings. We've seriously dropped down to 8,800 listings. And I can tell you just from my work yesterday after I got off with you guys on a couple of different contracts, both on my team and with people in the program, that there's a lot of activity. Listings are flying off the shelves, especially if they're priced right. So with that being said, what I want you to remember as we go to the next slide is there were 2,414 sold listings, okay? So on this next slide, this is from 200K to 300K. So that it's just that price point for the entire MLS. And there were 890 listings that sold that were just between 200 and 300K. So if I take a look at that, I'm just going to do a quick math thing. So 890 divided by 2414. What that means is 37% of the listings, of all the listings that sold, were in this price point. So over a third of the sales were that price point. So that's a good price point overall for NEFAR. If you look for properties at the beach in that price point, there aren't any. So we'll talk about how that changes things up a little bit. So the next thing that I'm going to show you, this is from 700,000 to 800,000. First of all, we only have 206 listings in that price range, where on the 200 to 300, we have 2,400. Over here, we have 206, less than 10% of the number in this price range, okay? We had 36 new listings and only 26 closings. Let's see if it'll let me move this. Oh, it chopped off. the months of inventory here is not necessarily good. You're looking at almost 10 months of inventory. The reason that I'm showing you this, there were only 26 closings. So if you're doing open houses from 700 to 800K, for you to have a closing, you're 1 out of 26 people. If you're doing open houses, and this is a general thing, in the 200K to 300K, then you're 1 out of 890. These odds for 200K and 300K are much better for you. Here's another interesting stat. So I did under, this is everything in our board of realtors, everything in MLS that's under 500,000. So if you remember, we had 2,414 listings and we had 2,192 sold. That means almost 91% of the listings that sold in a given month were under 500,000. So if it's me, I'm going to not be real excited about going over 500,000. Here's the caveat to this. And I spoke a little bit with Alicia about this the other day. So she lives in Ponte Vedra. The average price point in Ponte Vedra, Nocatee, all that area down there is around 500,000. So would I tell her to go do open, you can't do an open house at 600,000. You can't do an open house at 700,000. Would I tell her not to do that? No, I wouldn't tell her not to do it. I'll tell you that your chances aren't quite as high, but here's why I wouldn't tell her not to do it. If she's doing an open house somewhere close to the average sales price of that area or region, that's okay. For example, up here in Neptune Beach and North Jacks Beach, for example, the average sales price is in the 400s. Doing an open house at 450 is absolutely no big deal. I wouldn't be real excited about doing an open house over about 700 at the beaches. And these are generalities, okay? All I'm doing is playing the odds. I'm playing the odds. So I'm looking to have the opportunity of being one of the people at 2,192 versus one of the people out of 26. Do you see what I'm getting at? So that's the mentality. To me, price point is paramount. We don't always have choices. So another thing I'm going to throw out to you guys that we're going to see in a minute is everybody everywhere is low on inventory. And that means you don't have tons of opportunities for open houses. There's just not that many houses listed. There's a lot of agents, but not a lot of listings. You see what I mean? So what I want to get to now is I'm going to, and if I go too fast, any of that stuff, let me know. I'm going to go in and share my MLS screen with you. And I'm going to show you what I would do start to finish. So let's say that I just logged into MLS. And again, I'm recording this, so you'll be able to go back to this section and watch it, okay? But I'm going to try to go slow. So I sit down and say, I need to choose an open house for next weekend. Just to let you know, I probably wouldn't be choosing an open house for this weekend, this late in the game. That's going to knock down my opportunities to market. So I'm going to start hunting either the weekend before I'm going to do the open house or the Monday, Tuesday before I'm going to do an open house. I'm probably not going to start hunting for an open house on Thursday that I'm looking to have on Saturday. And as we get to, some rules, guidelines, thoughts, I'll explain why. So the first thing I would do if I'm hunting for an open house is I would do a quick search. So number one, quick search. So the next thing that I'm going to do is when you do an open house, you're going to do an open house for a Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Partners listing. Now, give you a little idea of what that means. First and foremost, a lot of you are Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Partners Jacksonville Beach office agents. We also have some agents that are Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Partners, Amelia Island agents. We have some of those on this. We also have an office in St. Augustine. So Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Partners, St. Augustine. And we also have Keller Williams. Yeah, Sean, you can record this if you need to. I'm making a recording as well. So you can also do Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Partners, our Southside office. You can get open house opportunities out of there. We're like stepbrothers, us and the Southside office. We share the same ownership group for the most part, but not all the way. They are two independent offices, but you know, we can get listings from there or to do our open houses. So the first thing that I do is I go down to this add a search field and I just type in selling. This gives us the selling listing company, the selling listing office, or the selling listing member. In this case, I'm going to choose the selling listing office. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Partners. So if I type that in, if I type that whole thing in, it's going to give me these 5 offices. These 5 offices are all, it's open season on open houses out of here. Some of the issues that you'll run into, the majority, if you're a Jax Beach office and you live up this way, most likely you're not going to do an open house way down in St. Augustine. But we do have some agents out of our St. Augustine office that do business up here. So that's why they're in here. And then there's also there's a couple places where there's a lot of crossover. So the St. Augustine has its own MLS that's not NEFAR. Amelia Island has their own MLS that's not NEFAR. But NEFAR crosses over into their MLS areas in some places. For example, St. Augustine out on 210 past 95. Those listings are often listed in NEFAR and the St. Augustine MLS both. And then for those of us, I know Melody Douglas has got a house out in the Yulee area. That also out there is Callahan and a couple of other areas. So that area crosses over. Some of those listings are only in NEFAR. Some of those listings are only in Amelia Island, but the majority of those listings are going to be in both MLSs, okay? So now that I've clicked listing office and selling office, I'm going to choose all these because they're all a possibility. So as of this morning, 314 active listings popped up for our Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Partners family of offices. Okay, so that stuff's popped up. I can click on this and look at the list. And this is what your list is initially going to look like. You're going to have these columns. This column with the price, status, and MLS number. You're going to have the column with the region, the column with the area, the approximate heated square foot, the bedrooms, the baths, the half baths, and the listing office. If you want to make this a little easier on yourself, you can go over here. Do you see this view button? If I click on this view button, the first thing that will come up is this general tab where there's a description and a report description. I can type in here, let's say, I'm going to do new agent open house. And I'll just put that down here. Or here's what I'll do. I'll just do open house opportunities. Okay, so I have that done. Then if I click on this fields tab, I don't really need to know about half baths. So I can take the things from this left side. These are available fields. These are the ones that are there by default, the selected fields. Okay, I don't really need half baths, so I'm going to ditch half baths. I'm going to leave listing office, but what I really need to do is I need to talk to the listing agent about doing an open house for their property. So the script for that is you would select the house that you want to do an open house at. You call the listing agent and say, hey, I'm looking to do an open house. I saw your listing on 123 Main Street. Are you and or your seller interested in doing an open house there next weekend on June the 6th? So they're the ones that are going to give you permission to do an open house at their listing. It's going to be the listing agent that you're going to communicate with. Them and their sellers will allow you or not allow you to do an open house. Okay. So we need to know who that listing agent is. Let's see if, okay, we don't want that. So over here, we could type in selling. Let me see what we got here. Let me think about what the term is. Just give me a second. This is why I don't like a quick search. Let me go down here and see if I can find. So you can scroll through all this stuff. It's not a bad idea to scroll through all of it and learn all the options. I'm going to scroll down until I get to the agent information. Because I can't remember what it's called. I have to go through this process of scrolling to find out who it is. And somebody can probably tell me, but now that I'm scrolling, I'm going to keep scrolling. All right. Who are we looking for? Where's my Huckleberry? All right. Condo restrictions, pool, no. Come on, get us to the agent junk. Getting.
There's an option that says call listing agent.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Oh, okay.
That's for setting up showings. That's why I scrapped that one. I want to find exactly the right thing. You're on the right track. I bet you it's going to be listing member, but we'll see. Oh, you dirty dog. Let me try this. Listing member. So why I typed listing and it didn't give me listing member, I have no freaking clue. I find it very annoying, but that's the joys of the quick search. So when I save that, now I have the office and I have over here the listing member. Okay, so that I can click on this and I can contact them. easier to click. You can click on that listing member and you can contact them. Their information is here. Okay. A couple other things that you might put there that you might want in this search is days on market. So if I save that, now over here, all the way on the right, I have the number of days on market. I'm a big fan of doing open houses on fresh listings. Listings that, you know, popped up in people's searches, either their MLS search, or if they have a Zillow search saved, or a realtor.com, or something on an app. I want a fairly fresh listing that's going to get more activity. So if I do like Descending, for example, I'm not really going to be super quick to do an open house on a house that's been on the market for 850 days. That's going to be low priority. Instead, I would prefer the ones that are a little bit fresher, which I think we have 3 new listings from last night. So 1, 2, 3, yeah, because I was doing this now 4, 5. So all these listings have been on the market just, you know, a week or 2, all the way down to here. Short period of time. I like short days on market if I can get it. Okay. So now we have the information that we need to know. A couple of other things that you could do. You could add a zip code field in here. So, or you can use this region area information. Somebody's panicking on my phone and they're gonna have to suck it up. So just giving you a heads up, that's, you know, I'm looking for those things, okay? So what I would do now is make some decisions. One of the things you could do is you could put it in order of listing office. So if I do listing office Descending, that's gonna put all the St. Augustine ones first in line. If I do listing office Descending, oh, that's what I already did. That's going to put St. Augustine. If I do Ascending, this is going to put our office first if you do Ascending. So ours is Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Partners. If you see F1530, that's your office. So this is a little bit of schooling on how to use MLS to make a good decision. So I would go through and look at that. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do, see, I'm not doing an open house at this $3.1 million house. That's probably not going to pan out for me. A couple of reasons why. A $3.1 million house, we might have 1 or 2 or none closings over $3 million in any given month. So you're basically playing the lottery on finding somebody here. Also, the people that walk into a $3 million listing generally don't walk in without an agent. This isn't their first go around. So your chances, even of somebody showing up, are slim, and then showing up without an agent is almost 0. You would have almost as good a chance winning the lottery as you would sit in that open house and getting anything of value out of it. So I'm going to go back to my price point thing. And this is for me personally. I'm going to say that I don't want any over 500. And I don't want any under 200. That's just my personal choice. That knocked me down to 161 listings. So now I can go through these and decide, you know, that's more what I'm looking for. Does that make sense? Any questions on what I'm doing there criteria wise? So if I have this set up and I do this for myself, the easiest thing for me to do at this point is to save this search And I'm gonna make it Patrick's open house opportunities. Dude, that was a horrible spelling there, fumbling. Okay, Patrick's open house opportunities. So I'm already in here as my own person, so I can choose existing. Oops, I screwed it up. Patrick's, sorry about that. Open house ops. Let's just stick with ops. So as far as a contact goes, I already have myself in here as a contact. So I'm in here as P. Dorian and all those things. My recommendation for you to practice is set yourself up as a new contact. So you could just set yourself up as a new contact. I'm going to choose existing because I'm already in my own. So I'll go down here and look for, I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to use my existing contact. So what I'm going to do is set this up. So I'm going to save and add a subscription. And you can see it's got my info in here. And I'm going to do it ASAP. So potential open house. So here's what will happen after I do this. I would get, the minute something that fit my open house opportunities, I will get an instant ASAP update that says potential open house. I can click on that link and see if it's something I need to jump on. Now, the issue you'll run into is a lot of agents will want to do their own property for the first, 2, 3, 4 open houses. Lucky for Rachel and I, we have a big sphere of influence. She's very happy that she doesn't have to do open houses anymore. She doesn't like them. And I don't have to do them anymore because I get paid by you. So when we have a new listing, if it pops up there ASAP, feel free to give us a call. I'll let you know whether you can do an open house there or not. So now that I have that set up, I'll hit save. And it'll ask me if I want to email these listings now, choose emails, or not send till later. So I could email all those listings. They're going to go to me right now, so that I could go later if I wanted to and review those listings and see which one, put them in rank order. What's my preferred open house here? I usually pick 6 or 7 of them based on my criteria and decide which one I want to do. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about criteria on selecting an open house?
It's not, well, I guess it's kind of a question about that. Going back to the St. Augustine having a different MLS thing, about how far south, like how far down US 1 does it go? Do you know?
Okay, so there's a couple different things. Generally, so I'll try to break it down the best that I can. The first problem is there's a lot of gray area. So the first thing is pretty much if you go the A1A route, straight down A1A, all the way into Volano Beach, the further you get into Volano Beach, the less chance there is of it being in our MLS, and the more chance that there is that it's going to be in St. Augustine. There's a good chance it'll be in both, but it's not a guarantee. So when you cross the Volano Beach Bridge and you get into Old Town, that's where the people there are very, very, their MLS is their baby, their listings are their baby. When you get into Old Town and south of there in St. Augustine, it starts to transition to where there will be things that are almost only in there, or there'll be more in their MLS and maybe a little bit less in our MLS, or a combination thereof. So when you go out to US1, it's mostly the same thing. So from US1, think about it this way. If you shoot straight out Racetrack Road, or better yet, if you shoot straight out 210, some examples of neighborhoods that would be out there would be like Southampton. There's a Johns Creek out there. There's a couple of other subdivisions out there. Most of those are actually in our MLS, and they may have some St. Augustine in there, but most of the ones that are out there are going to be in ours, or ours and St. Augustine, but they're mostly going to be in ours. So
Okay. I asked because I'm in Palencia, so I was wondering like how.
yeah, Palencia is going to be fine for you.
Okay.
That's pretty much see, I have it too, protective. Our MLS mostly owns Palencia.
Cool.
You'll get very few there that's only St. Augustine, and anybody that would do that from St. Augustine to their customer would be doing a disservice to them. They would want it to be an RMLS and St. Augustine, or only RMLS. That's not really an opinion, it's just mostly a fact. Any other questions about, making a selection? So going back to choosing the right property, condos are sometimes awesome and sometimes not. Gated communities. So when you're making these considerations, you can call the listing agent and say, hey, I'm interested in doing an open house at your listing in Deerwood, but it's a gated community. Can you tell me, what your thoughts are on that? And they can maybe give you some guidance as well. We talked about price point, vacant or occupied. That's a decision for you to make. I love having internet access if I can get it, either by a tethered phone or by actually using the seller's Wi-Fi is ideal. And then there's that signage and door knocking. So I'm looking to see, so with a lot of listings, I'm looking to see if I can do signage that a potential, I could, for example, I'll date myself here a little bit. Last time I did an open house was quite some time ago. It was right off of San Jose Boulevard. Easiest signs in the world. It was pointing down into a subdivision that was a one-road subdivision. So I put 4 or 5 signs out on out there on San Jose Boulevard, pointing into the neighborhood. Real easy to find. And then I put, an open house sign in the balloons and all that stuff on my sign out in front of the property. So that was a real easy one. Sometimes you'll run into it where there's, 8 turns from when they turn into the subdivision to eventually finding your location. I always try to take into account how hard is it for me to direct somebody into my open house. Just throwing that out there. Like I said, door knocking, I would put that on pause for the time being. Now, you need basically an open house kit. This is almost like a business in and of itself, doing open houses. That's how you should think of it as. I'm sitting at my open house folding table in one of my chairs right now, doing this class. So I'll do a table and chairs. I have, I think I bought this folding card table for like $50, and then 2 folding chairs. That's if I do an open house, I can go and sit at that property. If I was doing an open house currently in the COVID-19, I would probably be in front of the house at my table with my masks, gloves, whatever they told me to have. I would be at the front, and I would have the people go through, pick up mask, gloves. I'm going to make sure all the doors are open and everything. And I'm probably going to sit there and have them sign in. That way, if we have to, if somebody turns out to have COVID and we need to do contact tracing, that would be a way to do it. So your open house kit should have a table and chairs. You can buy open house signs. You can also go to Wilma or Kira or Megan at the Jack's Beach office. I'm sorry that the person's name at Amelia escapes me at the moment. But if you go to the person at the front of your office, you can check signs out. I prefer to have my own signs because I don't want to have to drive to the office before I start doing all my work for my open house. I try to make it so I can do it all quickly, easily in my house, go straight to the open house and knock it out. An example, I actually had for a short period of time a little helium balloon kit. You can buy one. It's got a helium tank, and you can buy a bunch of balloons, and you can buy some ribbons, and you can set up your open house signs in the comfort of your living room while watching an NFL football game, and then just shoot out from your house and do it. You can also do signs and ribbons and balloons from the office. I just prefer to have my own signs. I can't remember the exact cost on those. They're not super expensive. If anybody on here has bought any, feel free to throw that out there. I like to bring, and I'll show you an example of some sign-in sheets, and I would bring multiple pens. You can use balloons or spinners or flags of some kind to try to draw attention to your sign in your open house. The property flyer. So you would probably want to do like a property flyer or an open house invitation flyer. I'll show you where you can do that in just a minute. And I'll show you an example or two. MLS, you want to print out the MLS, multiple versions of the MLS listing, the public version. Oftentimes what I've done, either for my actual open house or if I'm going to walk flyers, is I'll have the open house or the property or the open house invite property flyer on the front, and I'll have the public version of the MLS printed on the back. So it's just one piece of paper when I go around and have conversations with people and knock on doors. I have all the information I need right there to talk to them and educate them on the property. So that'll make you stand out. You might get a seller by doing that type of activity. Refreshments, if you want to bring for refreshments, I always had a big galvanized bucket, and I would throw a bag of ice in there and a whole bunch of waters and sometimes some mini Coca-Colas or Sprites or something like that. Would skip that in the current environment. Again, read the COVID-19 open house guidelines and follow what they say. And actually bring cleaning supplies regardless. So your open house kit should have that regardless of COVID-19 or not. Because if you bring a tray of cookies, for example, and people get cookies all over the countertops, and then you leave the open house and it's that way, and that seller gets crabby, they're going to call the listing agent, and your opportunity for doing open houses for that listing agent from that day forward may go away. So we want to leave the house in as good or better condition as it was when we entered the house. Okay? So that would be examples of things that I would want to have when I built my open house kit. So marketing your open house, and I have some rules here that I would highly recommend that you follow. First of all, you're going to contact the listing agent, and you're going to want them, this is probably the most important thing for your marketing, you're going to want them to advertise the open house in MLS because it's their listing. They're the only ones that can put that in MLS. So you need to have them do that for you. And then you're going to want to make sure that your open house is marketed on the big three websites. The big three websites are Zillow, Trulia, and realtor.com. Some of that trickles down from MLS and some of it doesn't. You just want to go on those 3 big websites and the listing in MLS and verify that the open house is being advertised. Okay? The next thing that I highly recommend that you do is, if you don't already have it, create a Facebook business page for your real estate business. If you go on YouTube, there's a million videos, and a lot of them are real estate based. Educate yourself. Creating a business page is not very difficult. So after you share your open house to your Facebook business page, go back to your personal page and share what you put on your business page onto your personal page. What that'll do is allow people to sort of follow the breadcrumbs and maybe like your business page, but you've got it in both places that way. It'll help you build a little bit of an audience, okay? Door knocking, like I said, at the moment, not absolutely, or it's absolutely something I wouldn't do. When that comes back around, generally speaking, you're going to knock on the door and you're going to say, hey, I'm Patrick Dorian with Keller Williams Realty. Just wanted to let you know that you may see some traffic, a little more than normal this Saturday in your neighborhood. That's because I'm putting an open house. I'm holding an open house event down the street at 123 Main Street. I wanted to invite you there as well. If you'd like to come by, we would love to have you if you're interested in seeing the house, or if you want to choose your neighbor. Maybe you have somebody that you know that might be interested in moving into the neighborhood. So anything to start a conversation. Some people are not going to want to talk to you. They're not going to open the door. They're going to peek through the shade and say, leave it, go away. Here's the way I look at anything that I do in terms of door knocking. Because I used to do this quite a bit for expired listings. You got to go in with the right attitude. And the attitude is, one way or another, I'm leaving here with a story. The story might be that the person opened the door and called me all kinds of horrible names. Or the story might be that the person opened the door and said, really, I'm actually thinking about selling my own house. Can you take a look at my house? I've actually had people walk me through their house. You're going to get all into the spectrum. But the thing that I always look at is, either I'm going to have a fantastically hilarious story of somebody poking a .45 Magnum in my face, or I'm going to have an incredibly awesome story of, I was door knocking and I got a listing. And there's everything in between there. Okay. So for me, I just look at it as an experience to have some fun and gain a story. So that's how it works with door knocking, just throwing that out there. And then use open house directional signs to grab attention and to let people follow you into your open house. Help get them there. So in terms of follow-up, and we're going to do a little bit of a discussion here. This class is not going to be as long as most. Guests without agents are a priority. So I'm going to show you a couple things now. And let me see what I want to share first. Let's share this. Open house checklist, sign in. Let's share this. Okay, so this is an open house sign-in form. It's designed for you to get the information from your guests. You want to get as much of this information as you can, and we'll talk about how to get that, because oftentimes they don't want to give it up, but we'll talk about some strategies. So you want their name, their phone number, their current address, their city, their state, their zip code, their email. Then there's a couple questions. Are you currently working with a realtor? If the answer there is yes, they're not your customer. You're not selling them the house that you're sitting in. But to some extent, you can put them on the pay no mind list. In other words, the script would be awesome, hey, you would see this when they filled it out, and you go, hey, feel free to go walk around, check the house out. Here's a flyer, here's the MLS sheet. If you have any questions, let me know. So you're not going to follow them around and create a conversation with that person if they're working with a realtor. On the other hand, if they circle no on that, you're probably going to be more engaged. You may walk with them around the house and ask them questions to engage in a conversation. For example, hey, when are you looking to purchase your home? Where do you currently live? Do you have a house to sell? Why did you choose this house to come to as an open house? So you would want to create that conversation with somebody that didn't have a realtor. So this form is used to capture their information so that you can contact them, but also so you know whether they're a potential ready, willing, and able buyer for you or not. Okay, so that's why those questions are on there. I'm going to share another one with you. I have so many things open. All right, here we go. Here's something that you can use. If you're inside the house, you could post this on the front door. Thank you for coming. Please come in. And then you put it on the homeowners. The homeowners have asked that you register inside. So right when they come up to the door and knock on it and you open it up, they're going to see this sign before you open it up. And then you can also refer to this sign, because right inside the door, you're going to have your table with the sign-in questionnaire or sign-in sheet. So this is just trying to help you build a case for why you want their information and help you obtain their information. Okay, I'm going to go back to okay. So the reason I put on there, guests without agents are a priority. If they have an agent, they're not really a priority. Obviously, be super nice. Feel free to answer any questions to be helpful to the listing agent and their agent. But if there's somebody in there that doesn't have an agent, they're going to take priority. And then for follow-up, you're going to use that information from the sign-up forms. It would be awesome to be able to set them up on an MLS search. So when we talked about the buyer's consultation way back at the beginning, at the beginning of the month, in there's a, I'm trying to think of exactly what I call it. It's basically, there's a form for asking questions about what their priorities are, their search criteria. So it's a search criteria form. You could bring a paper version of a search criteria form and say, hey, where do you want to live? What's your price point? Have you talked to an agent? Why do you want to live here? Do you have a house to sell? It guides you through all that information. What size house are you looking for? How many beds do you need? How many baths do you need? Do you want it to have a pool or not? You can ask all of those questions, and that form from the buyer's consultation can guide you when you're asking those questions. So something that's even better than that. And I'm just going to be honest with you about how I am, my personality, and also the way I work. I move around really fast and do like 10,000 things. And it's entirely possible that I could do a poor job of following up. Everybody has that challenge. I have that challenge too. What I would prefer over anything is to have internet access and do a search with them in the house, putting their search criteria into an MLS search, setting them up for automatic updates. Then my follow-up is taken care of. Plus, it's pretty freaking cool. If you can show them, hey, there's 6 or 7 other houses in this neighborhood currently that are available. my open house is done in 2 hours. If you're interested in seeing some of those, I can try to set up appointments for those for you. You see what I mean? There's so much you can throw into it if you bring your computer and have access to all the information of surrounding houses, surrounding neighborhoods. I just highly recommend that. It's instantaneous follow-up, and it's very, very high level follow-up. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, there's a couple other things that I might want to share with you. Here's what I'm going to share with you. I thought this was interesting. This came from a gentleman by the name of Phil Aiken. I had him do the open house classes because he loved doing it back when I was the productivity coach previously. So he came up with a checklist, an open house checklist that they used as a points scale. So if you want to do the highest number of points you possibly could, you would announce your open house at your team meeting. If there were other open houses in the neighborhood, you would contact those agents and coordinate open houses and marketing with them. You would check to see if it was a gated community and make sure you fit any requirements you needed to if it was. Now, the only time you're going to have a discussion with the owner is if it's your listing. So this says discuss plan with owner. I would put discuss plan with owner or listing agent. For getting Wi-Fi access, make sure it's advertised in MLS, Trulia, Zillow, Realtor.com. Again, check the neighborhood for any other open houses. Preview the other neighborhood homes. So if you're doing an open house and you're aware of every other house, if somebody walks in and says, hey, I really like this home, I like this kitchen, I like the bathrooms, but it's only a 3-bedroom and I want a 4-bedroom, you can instantly say, hey, I was in another house in this neighborhood recently. It's a 4-bedroom. Everything else closely resembles this house. Would you be interested in seeing it later today? You could absolutely do that. So that would be a really cool thing. Then you deserve points for that. So create flyers and a map. Sometimes you need a map to get to the house. So you would create a flyer and then on the back you would have a map. If it was in a large gated community like Queens Harbor or maybe Jack's Golf and Country Club. You could take your Bank of England lender and have him create a flyer for some different lending options for that house. That's a nice thing to have with you. Keller Williams directional signs are helpful. He has from Trish because that's the front person over, or was the front person over at the Southside office. 3 days prior, print your flyers, print 15 copies of the MLS data sheet, print the lender flyer, preview the neighborhood homes, create a spreadsheet of neighborhood homes. I wouldn't do that. I would probably go straight to printing out the neighborhood homes from the MLS, order balloons if needed, print the spreadsheet of neighborhood homes and the MLS data sheets so you can bring all the information for all the houses in the neighborhood with you. Print open house sign-ins, print the come in please, and seller asks you to sign in that you're going to put on the door. Pass out flyers to the neighborhood, make sure it's advertised everywhere. And the day of open house, you're going to have your open house kit, your table, your balloons, any refreshments that you bring, your directional signs, the please come in. We don't need a tripod for what we're doing. And then afterward, whatever your follow-up campaign is, he does a video before he leaves the open house. If anybody's ever wanted to know or looked up BombBomb, you can do a real quick video and just say, hey, I just wanted to thank you for coming into my open house. If you have any other questions about this house or any other one in the area, please feel free to give me a ring. My information is right down here below. Again, thanks for coming in, and I look forward to talking to you soon. You could create that video and send that out as it goes out through email to start your follow-up campaign. So I really like this open house checklist. I think that's a valuable thing that you could use. Let me see if there's anything that I'm missing. Here's a quick example of an open house flyer. You can create these. They have awesome templates in KW Command. This one was created with our old system, the eEdge system. Believe it or not, I think this one looks fantastic, but you can create one of these flyers in minutes using KW Command. That's one of the classes that Megan teaches you. So how to use KW Command and use this. So you would create a flyer. A couple things to make sure you put on your flyer: the date and time. So if he doesn't have a date on here, I would do the date and the time of the open house. You want the address for the open house. You want the price. And then the best thing you can do, or probably will want to do, if the remarks in the MLS make sense, if they have, you know, good remarks in there, just copy and paste those remarks into your open house flyer. You'll want to have the year built, the square footage, beds and baths, and then have your information. So you could create a flyer like this, and then on the other side, just print the public version of the MLS listing from MLS. Would be a nice, powerful flyer. So let me do one other thing here. Actually, I think that's everything that I'm wanting to get out to you today regarding open houses. It's a lot of information. I should be able to post this video this afternoon. So if you need to go back to it to figure out, you know, how to do search parameters or any other things that are involved in here, feel free to do that. In the Keller Williams, in the KWJB Future Cappers, on the KWJB Future Cappers website, under downloads, all the materials that we just looked at, including, you know, the sign for the door, the open house sign-ins, that point system, the to-do list, all that stuff is in here, and you can download it, modify it, and use it as needed. So all that stuff is in there for you. With that being said, the question I now have is, do you have any questions on any of this stuff? I'd be more than happy to do my best to answer them. And the cool part is we have a video, so if you forgot something or if a question pops up to you later when you listen to the video again, you're more than welcome to, you know, shoot me a text or give me a call and ask me a question. Okay? All right. So with that being said, class is done for today. I will have the video up in the not too distant future. I will have the Sign Up Genius up for June 1-to-1s in the not too distant future. And by the end of the day tomorrow, I should have a final decision plus information for you to make an educated decision on whether you're comfortable coming into the office or not for training starting on Monday, June 1st. Okay, guys?
Thank you very much.
No problem, guys. You're awesome. I appreciate you being there, and I will put this up so that you can see it later today.
Hey,
Thanks
Pat,
for,
Sounds
Yep.
great.
Hey, Pat.
Thanks.
are the classes before today, are those all recorded too? Or do we have
the majority of them are not, because I was having an issue with my Zoom. I made a call to them because when I was recording, it was diminishing. It was actually knocking me off the call half the time to where, there was a big lag or it got all choppy. I gave them a call. They sent me an update that made it so I could do it now. I have one or two out there that I'll see if I can put them out. But for the most part, with technical difficulties, it didn't pan out great. What I can tell you is that moving forward in June, I'm going to talk to Megan today about making it so that we can Facebook live stream the training and also make a video at that same time. So we'll have the videos for classes this coming month, barring any big technical difficulties that I don't have any control over.
So all the classes for this next month, we can go in the office or we can watch them live stream. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm shooting for. I'll give you the definitive answer by the end of the day tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
That would be awesome. I have to do a 2-week quarantine when I get there. So,
Sounds like loads of fun.
yep.
They hunt you down coming into Jacksonville?
Probably. Who knows?
Yeah, I know.
Movers are here now, loading up the truck.
Yep. Yeah. I think they've relaxed it some. Are you flying in or driving in?
We are flying in.
Okay. So there's a distinct possibility that you're going to get a bunch of questions about where you're coming from and what you've been doing. As far as I know, and they might take your temperature and all that different stuff. It might be a little bit more relaxed because you're coming from
Washington,
That's what I thought. Okay.
where it started.
Yeah, they might have questions for you. So
Right.
We'll see how that goes for you. I wish you the best.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Anybody else? Anything? All right. Have an incredible weekend. If I don't talk to you, if you need me, shoot me a text, give me a call. We'll get you the help you need.
Thank you, Patrick.
No
Thank you.
problem. Have a great one, guys.
Yeah.
I did really quick have like 2 questions for you.
Go ahead.
Well, the first is about an open house. There's a listing from our office in my neighborhood in Valencia, actually, that it's vacant and ready to be shown, it says on the MLS. However, it's been on the market for 55 days.
That's not bad. Yeah.
Okay.
We're trying to avoid stuff that's been on the market for more than 90.
Okay.
55 would be absolutely fine. I wouldn't worry about it. Who's the listing agent for that one? I don't know if you know that. I'm asking you, but that might be hard to answer that quickly.
Yeah, it's Susan Fedor.
Okay. So yeah, she all you would do is, contact her and say, hey, I'm interested in doing an open house. I just want to see, if you're interested in me doing one for you. And let her know you'll take all precautions and follow all COVID-19 stuff.
Okay, because it's right here in my neighborhood. Plus, it's vacant, so I just wanted to.
Yeah, all the way around. That sounds like a potential winner.